My name is Maya Stone, and I won't pay the price of your dreams.
My name is Maya Stone, and the story I'm about to tell you isn't pretty. It's not a fairy tale. It's a story about what happens when love has a price tag and what it costs to finally say, I won't pay. It begins here. The cold, damp air of Clearview, Ohio still smells the same, like wet asphalt and forgotten dreams. The private jet's engines whined as they powered down, a sound so alien in this place it felt like a spaceship had just landed. This airport, with its cracked runway and rusted-out sign, hadn't changed in the 15 years since I'd last seen it. But I had. The door hissed open, and the first thing to touch Ohio's soil was the blood-red sole of a Christian Louboutin heel. I stepped out, the sharp cut of my black power suit a stark contrast to the dreary gray sky. I wasn't the scared 18-year-old girl who fled this town with nothing but a shattered heart and $20 in her pocket. I was someone else entirely, someone they had created. There's an old saying people use to make peace with their ghosts. You can never go home again. They're wrong. You absolutely can. You just have to return on your own terms. You can come back when you own it. I know some of you watching right now, maybe in the quiet of your room, understand what it's like to feel like an outsider in your own story. If you've ever felt like you had to fight for your own happy ending, do me a favor and just tap that like button so I know I'm not alone. Because what happened after I took that first step, what forced me to become this person, well, that story starts 15 years ago, in a cramped kitchen, with a single, life-altering word. 15 years earlier, I wasn't stepping out of a jet. I was pinned in our suffocatingly small kitchen, the air thick with the smell of stale coffee, and my family's uniquely tailored brand of desperation. In my hand, I was clutching a letter from Ohio State University. It was my golden ticket. Not a full ride, but a partial scholarship, a fighting chance to be the first person in my family to get a degree. It was the only future I could see, but in my house, my good news was never just mine. It was an opportunity for them. My sister, Chloe, the perennial golden child, was buzzing about her latest obsession. This month, it was a multi-level marketing scheme called Eternal Life, a classic pyramid scam disguised with slick branding and promises of financial freedom. My father, Frank, slid a thick stack of papers across the sticky vinyl tablecloth, stopping them right next to my acceptance letter, a business loan application. The interest rate, a predatory 28%, practically screamed from the page. Chloe just needs a co-signer for her startup inventory, he said, his voice carrying that familiar weight of a command, not a request. You're 18 now. Your credit is a blank slate. It's for the family, Maya. My mother, Sharon, chimed in, her hand gripping my shoulder. Don't be selfish, honey. This could be the thing that finally lifts us all up. Selfish. That was their word for me whenever I chose survival over my sister's whims. I looked from the loan papers to my scholarship letter. A trap or a ticket out. They were asking me to choose. Be honest with me in the comments right now. What would you have done? Type A, if you would have protected your own future. Or B, if you would have risked it for family. Let me know A or B down below. Because my answer to them, my single, quiet word, was the match that lit the fuse. I looked at their expectant faces, a predatory gleam in their eyes that they mistook for hope. I pushed the loan application back across the table. No. The word was quiet, but it landed in the center of the room like a grenade. Chloe's manufactured smile evaporated. My mother's hand recoiled from my shoulder as if she'd been burned. My father's face, however, was the most terrifying. It went from a mask of paternal encouragement to a deep, mottled red. "What did you just say?" he breathed, the words low and dangerous. I took a steadying breath, the smell of my future in Austin feeling a million miles away. "I said no," I repeated, my voice longer this time. "I read the terms. This isn't a business loan. It's financial suicide. It's a pyramid scheme, and I will not chain my entire future to it just so Chloe can play pretend entrepreneur for a few months before it all collapses." The truth was a foreign language in that house. Chloe burst into the theatrical tears. "See? She's always been jealous of me." My mother rushed to her side, glaring at me. "How could you be so cruel?" But it was Frank who truly exploded. He slammed his fist on the table, rattling the cheap ceramic mugs in the dish rack. "Cruel. I'll show you cruel," he roared, his voice bouncing off the thin walls. "You live under my roof, you eat my food, and you will do as you're told. If you're not with this family, then you are against it." He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my skin, and hauled me towards the front door. He wasn't just angry, he was erasing me. In that moment, I wasn't his daughter. I was a defective part being discarded. He ripped the front door open and shoved my worn suitcase out onto the porch. "Then get out," he screamed, his spittle hitting my face. "Go be a victim somewhere else." The door slammed shut, the sound of the deadbolt clicking into place echoing louder than his shouts. It was the sound of my life breaking in two. The silence that followed the slammed door was somehow more violent than the screaming. I stood on that porch, the humid Ohio air clinging to my skin, and realized I wasn't just outside my house. I was outside my entire life. My world shrank to the suffocating confines of my beat-up '98 Honda Civic. The driver's seat, permanently molded to the shape of my back, became my bed. The glove compartment held the last of my possessions, and the public restroom at the corner gas station became my only source of running water. You learn to become invisible when you live like that. You learn to park in the forgotten corners of 24-hour supermarket lots, your heart seizing every time a security guard drives by. My dreams of a university degree felt like a cruel joke, a life belonging to someone else. There was a moment on the third night when the cold had seeped so deep into my bones that I actually put the key in the ignition to drive back. I was ready to beg, ready to apologize for wanting a future they didn't approve of. That's the insidious nature of control. It makes you believe that a gilded cage is better than the terrifying freedom of the open sky. It's a quiet, desperate feeling to be at rock bottom. I wonder what time it is right now, wherever you are in the world watching this. For me, that night felt like 3 a.m. for the soul. That dark hour when all your fears feel like prophecies. I had $7 left. I hadn't eaten in nearly 2 days. The hunger was a physical, gnawing ache. I saw the warm yellow glow of an all-night diner on the edge of town, Sal's place, and stumbled toward it like a moth to a flame. The smell of coffee and fried bacon was overwhelming. I remember reaching the counter, my vision blurring at the edges. I opened my mouth to ask for a glass of water, but the world tilted, and everything went black. I woke up to the smell of brewing coffee and the gentle clatter of ceramic on a countertop. I wasn't on the cold diner floor. I was tucked into the worn vinyl booth, A thick, coarse blanket draped over me. A glass of water and a plate with 2 aspirins sat on the table. Standing behind the counter was a man who looked like he was carved from the same tough, tired material as the town itself. His name was Sal. He had a face etched with the roadmap of 1,000 long nights and hands that were permanently stained with grease, but his eyes were clear and sharp. He wasn't looking at me with pity, which was a relief. It was something else, a look of appraisal, of understanding. He just nodded toward the plate. "Eat," he grunted, his voice a low rumble. "You're no good to anyone passed out on my floor." I devoured the plate of scrambled eggs and toast he silently placed before me. I ate like a starved animal, hot tears of shame and gratitude blurring my vision. He didn't ask where I came from or why I was alone. When I was finished, he simply started wiping down the counter. "I saw you in that car for 3 days," he said, not looking at me. "Saw you weren't asking for handouts." "There's a difference between being broke and being broken, kid. You ain't broken." He gestured with his chin toward a swinging door that led to the kitchen. "My dishwasher quit this morning. Job pays minimum wage. You get a share of the tips, and there's a small room upstairs. It's not the Four Seasons, but it's warm and the door has a lock." He finally met my gaze, his eyes intense. "I see a fire in you. Question is, are you going to let it die out, or are you going to use it to cook?" For the first time, someone was offering me a hand, not a leash. I nodded, a wave of emotion choking any words I might have had. My new life began right there, with the smell of bleach and bacon. 5 years is a long time. It's long enough to turn a scared, homeless girl into a woman. Under Sal's gruff mentorship, I didn't just survive, I thrived. I went from washing dishes to managing his books, learning the brutal, honest math of a small business. He encouraged me to go back to school. I took night classes at the local community college, then transferred to Ohio State, paying for every single credit myself with money earned from double shifts and freelance bookkeeping. I was 1 week away from graduating with a degree in finance, with honors. The girl who fainted on the diner floor was a ghost. I was finally building a life they couldn't touch. Then the call came. My grandmother, the only person in that family who ever told me I was smart without wanting something in return, had passed away. I felt I owed her memory my presence, so I drove the 5 hours back to Clearview, telling myself I was just going to a funeral, not a family reunion. The service was quiet and somber. The real ambush happened afterward, in the damp, wood-paneled basement of the church during the reception. My mother cornered me next to a platter of sad-looking sandwiches, her eyes red and swollen. But it wasn't from grief. It was the practiced look of a performer. "Maya," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Your grandmother. She always worried so much about us." My father and Chloe materialized beside her, completing the triangle. That business venture of Chloe's. "It went under," Frank mumbled, staring at his shoes. "The loan defaulted, the penalties, the interest. It's buried us." Chloe just shrugged, defiant even now. "It wasn't my fault." Then, my mother delivered the killing blow, using my grandmother's memory as a weapon. "She would want you to help us, Maya. To keep the family together. We need $50,000, or we lose the house." They were trying to leverage my grief, using a casket as their negotiation table. In that instant, any residual warmth I held for them turned to ice. They hadn't changed. They had just run out of options. I didn't give them an answer. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply turned, walked out of that church basement, and left their pathetic attempt at emotional blackmail hanging in the air with the scent of stale coffee. I got in my car and drove west. It was in that moment I understood that Clearview, Ohio, wasn't just a town. It was a cage built of guilt and obligation, and if I didn't escape its gravitational pull for good, it would eventually crush me. So I kept driving until the landscape changed from Rust Belt gray to Sunbelt gold. I landed in a city I'd only ever read about, a place that seemed like the very opposite of my past, Austin, Texas. A city of gleaming steel, relentless innovation, and, most importantly, a place where no one knew my name. I started at the absolute bottom rung of the ladder, a junior financial analyst at a fast-growing tech company. But I had a secret weapon that the fresh-faced college grads around me didn't. I wasn't just working for a paycheck. I was fueled by the cold, quiet rage of my past. While they were at happy hour, I was devouring balance sheets. While they were on vacation, I was earning my CFA charter. I learned the ruthless language of venture capital and logistical efficiency. After 5 years, I knew the game inside and out. I left my 6-figure job and poured every penny I had into starting my own consulting firm from a tiny, windowless office. Stone Capital. It's amazing what you can create when you're trying to build a fortress around a wounded heart. I built a company. Maybe you built a family, a beautiful garden, or just a stronger version of yourself. Take a second and share one thing you're proud of building in your life in the comments below. Let's fill this space with some wins. Because as my own small empire grew, a new, audacious plan began to form. A plan that required me to go back and face the ghosts I had tried so hard to outrun. My success in Austin was never the end game. It was the ammunition. For a decade, I built my company, my reputation, and my capital. I became a master of turning neglected assets into profitable ventures. And all the while, I was watching my hometown from afar, not with nostalgia, but with the cold, calculating eye of an investor. My plan began subtly. Through a carefully structured shell corporation I named Apex Holdings, my firm started buying property in Clearview. Not the nice parts of town. We bought the forgotten parts. We acquired defaulted mortgages from banks tired of chasing payments. We bought tax-liened homes at county auctions for pennies on the dollar. We bought the boarded-up storefronts and the crumbling houses on the block where I grew up. To the town council, Apex was just another faceless, out-of-state entity gobbling up urban decay. They had no idea that every purchase was a meticulous move on a chessboard that only I could see. They didn't know that the CEO of Stone Capital was the sole owner of Apex Holdings. They certainly didn't know about my master plan, the one I had codenamed Project Phoenix. It was a $50 million urban renewal initiative to acquire and demolish 3 entire blocks of urban blight, including my old street, and rebuild it from the ground up. I wasn't just planning to build a tech incubator and affordable housing. I was planning to erase a landscape of painful memories and construct a future in its place. The final, most crucial piece fell into my hands 6 months ago. The house I was thrown out of, the one they had begged me to save, finally went into foreclosure. The bank, eager to offload a toxic asset, sold the mortgage to Apex Holdings. They were no longer homeowners. They were my tenants, and they had no idea. Now, with every piece of the puzzle in my possession, it was time to go back. Not as Maya Stone, the runaway, but as the architect of a new reality. The Clearview High School gymnasium was packed. the air buzzing with the angry energy of a town that felt under siege. It smelled the same as I remembered, a nostalgic mix of floor wax, stale popcorn, and simmering resentment. Tonight, the enemy was a faceless corporation called Apex Holdings. I watched from the wings of the stage as speaker after speaker condemned the vultures from the city coming to destroy their heritage. And leading the charge, seated in the front row, were none other than Frank, Sharon, and Chloe. My father had already given a passionate speech about the sanctity of a person's home, dripping with a hypocrisy so thick it was almost comical. My mother nodded sagely beside him, the picture of a concerned citizen. They were fighting for a house they hadn't truly owned in months, performing for a town that didn't know their secrets. Finally, the mayor stepped to the podium. "I understand there are a lot of strong feelings here tonight," he began, his voice tinny through the old sound system. "But I have personally met with the head of this project. They aren't here to destroy Clearview. They are here to invest in it. In fact, this person grew up right here among us." A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. The mayor raised his hand for silence. "So it is my distinct honor to introduce the founder and CEO of Stone Capital and the visionary behind Project Phoenix. Please give a warm welcome home to Ms. Maya Stone." The silence that followed was a physical force. It sucked the air out of the room. Then, a collective gasp. I stepped out from the darkness of the wings and into the single, harsh spotlight. My heels clicked with deliberate precision on the wooden stage. I watched my father's jaw go slack, the color draining from his face. I saw my mother's hand fly to her open mouth, her eyes filled with a horror that was deeply satisfying. Have you ever had a true full-circle moment, where the past and the present collide in the most cinematic way? Just type the word justice in the comments below if you know that powerful, electric feeling. I reached the podium, looked directly at my family, and smiled. My speech to the town wasn't about the past. It was about the future: job creation, tax revenue, a state-of-the-art community center, and modern housing. I sold them a vision, not a vendetta. The room erupted into chaos, a war between the hopeful applause of a town desperate for revival and the furious shouts of those who feared change. In the commotion, as the mayor's staff tried to guide me backstage, they cornered me. Of course they did. It was in a stark cinder-block hallway, the noise of the auditorium a muffled roar behind a heavy door. There were no cameras here, no audience. The performance was over. The righteous anger they had displayed moments before had evaporated, replaced by a raw, animalistic panic. Sharon, my mother, was first. She grabbed the sleeve of my suit, her grip surprisingly strong. "Maya, you can't," she pleaded, her voice cracking, the tears genuine this time. "That's our home, all our memories." Frank tried to summon the ghost of his former authority. "You listen to me," he sputtered, his face pale and sweaty. "I am still your father. You will stop this nonsense right now." And Chloe, always the true victim in her own mind, sneered at me, her face a mask of bitter resentment. "You're a monster," she hissed. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Tearing us down just for your own sick pleasure." I looked at the three of them, this desperate trinity of regret, and felt nothing but a profound cold calm. I deliberately peeled my mother's fingers from my arm. "The time for you to be my parents ended when you chose a pyramid scheme over your own daughter's future," I said. my voice even and steady. And the house ceased to be yours the moment the bank sold your defaulted mortgage to my company. You have 30 days to vacate the property. I then turned to Chloe. And yes, in a way, I am enjoying this. The clarity of it. So thank you. You were the catalyst for all of this. You taught me that family could be the most dangerous liability of all. Later that night, I stood in my suite at the newly built hotel downtown, looking out the panoramic window at the scattered lights of Clearview. The town looked so small from up here. On the polished mahogany desk behind me lay a single document, a digital signature pad next to it. It was the final demolition order for Sector 7, the block containing the house with the peeling paint and the porch where my life was shattered. For 15 years, I had imagined this moment of victory, the ultimate checkmate. So why was my hand trembling? I picked up the stylus, but I couldn't bring myself to sign. In the crushing silence of the room, I could almost hear Sal's gruff voice echoing in my memory. Kid, don't ever let them turn you into them. Don't let their bitterness poison you. Was this justice, or was it just cruelty wearing a more expensive suit? Was I really any different from them? Just slamming a bigger, more destructive door? I closed my eyes, and for a gut-wrenching moment, I wasn't a CEO. I was that 18-year-old girl again, curled up in the freezing cold of my Honda, crying so hard I couldn't breathe, convinced I was worthless. She deserved justice. But what did that justice look like? It couldn't just be about tearing something down. That was their way. My way had to be about building. The demolition wasn't the victory. The victory was what would come after. The homes for families who deserved them. The community center that would give other lost kids a safe place to go. A place named after Sal. The bitterness had been the fuel that got me here, but it couldn't be the destination. I opened my eyes. The conflict settled. I picked up the stylus and signed my name. It wasn't an act of revenge. It was an act of groundbreaking. I didn't stay in Clearview to watch the demolition. I didn't need the satisfaction of seeing the walls come down. My work there was finished. A year later, the project manager sent me a link to a drone video. I watched a time-lapse of the entire transformation. I saw the old, tired houses, including the one that haunted my dreams, crumble to dust in mere seconds. Then, just as quickly, new foundations were poured. Steel skeletons reached for the sky. The glass and warm wood sidings of modern, affordable homes began to gleam in the Ohio sun. And right where my old house once stood, I saw the framework for the Sal Stone Community Center rise, a beacon of hope built on a foundation of painful memories. It was never about destruction. It was always about resurrection. I don't know what happened to my family. I heard they moved out of state to live with a relative. I never heard from them again, and I realized in that moment that I didn't need to. I had spent so long thinking that my healing required their apology, their acknowledgement of what they did, but that's the great lie we tell ourselves. Your closure does not live in the heart of the person who broke you. It lives in your own. Their opinion of you is a prison cell, but the door is only locked from the inside. The most powerful act of rebellion isn't revenge. It's building a life so full and beautiful that their chapter becomes an insignificant footnote. It's creating a future so bright that it burns away the shadows of the past. That scared 18-year-old girl finally got her justice, not when the house came down, but when the community center went up. If you believe in the power of writing your own script, of choosing construction over bitterness, then hit that subscribe button and become part of this community. Let's be architects of our own lives together. Thanks for watching.